My name is Betty Francis Lamar. I was married to Espinal. My hometown is Poseyville.
Oh, my name is John Martin Webb, and I'm from Poseyville, Indiana.
I'm Norma Sue Espinal Butler, and my physical address is actually Wadesville, but I was raised in Poseyville or around the area.
Dora Marie Newman, Poseyville, Indiana.
Oh, I'm Larry Dean Espinal, and I've always been at Poseyville, Indiana.
My name is Mary John Fletcham, and I live here in Poseyville, Indiana.
My name is William Hammond. My hometown is really Evansville, Indiana, but I've lived in Poseyville since 1960.
My name is Jean Manning, and I grew up in Sturgeville, Indiana. Live in Poseyville now.
James Gordon Rumble, and right now it's Poseyville, Indiana.
Well, I was born in 1927, and I would say that my mother brought me to church in 1927. How did I get to church? We had a 27 Model T car, Model T four-door car, and that's how we got to church.
I've attended St. Paul since I was first grader in school. So that was in 1936.
It was church 1960.
43 years.
Well, I have attended this church for 75 years, which is my whole life. Also, my parents attended this church, and my grandparents attended this church, and my great-grandparents. So we have a lot of roots in this church.
Since I was a junior in high school, I want to say 41, 39, I guess.
Since I was born, as far as I know, which will be 73 years in 2 weeks.
I started when I was 3, so that'd be 76 years. I'm 79.
I've attended this church since 1953 when I joined. I think my fondest memories are the chowders and the Methodist women, the things we did and trips we took, and the fellowship that we had in doing all those things and working together. And I can remember a lot of people that way.
I guess all 3 of my daughters were married here.
My memories are of the choir because my mother sang in the choir and the different people were there. Ruth Weary was the organist, and Nelma Davis, different ones that were, Elsie Etherton that was in the choir, and people that my mother knew and I was raised around, the Sunday school classes and the children's programs, the children being involved in the Advent programs and different programs at the church.
Well, when you've been in this church for 75 years, it's difficult to narrow it down to one thing. I think if I would go all the way back to my childhood, some of the parties that we had here, they were well attended. The Halloween parties were fabulous. At that time, to get apples and candy corn, it was just a fun evening. And of course, our costumes were not store-bought. You had to think of something very original. And to win a prize for that was something special. So that's a childhood memory.
My fondest memory of the church is probably the Sunday that I was in the confirmation class and became a member. That was in 1943. I was 12 years old. But I was thinking about memories, and the fondest memories of this church is all the people that I have worshiped with all those years. Some of them are still with us, and some of them have gone home. That's my fondest memories of the people, and working with them and worshiping with them.
I thought Claude Atkins was probably the finest, greatest person I probably met while I was in this church. An unbelievable man and individual, and taught me a lot. And I remember one Sunday when he had this little box, and Keith Weedman's grandson had cancer. And we all put something that we wanted to happen in this little box, and to set it up here, and then he prayed over it, of all those requests that was in that little box, and of course he was healed, and and he's a fine young man today, and that was one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen in all my life, that Sunday morning.
What do you have some stories you'd like to tell us about the church?
About the church?
On your paper?
Oh, I've got a lot of stories, but I didn't intend to. Well, we had one of the advantages of attending this church. We had indoor plumbing at the present time. We did not used to have it. My grandmother and my aunt lived right across the street in that yellow house, and we would go over there if we needed the restroom or any water.
Oh, I remember as a teenager coming up with the youth group, and we rang the bell when World War II was over in August of 1945. We were so happy. I was a teenager.
My fondest memory is the day I was married here. The one thing is I found out, I've never figured out one is escapade on the front of the church, what that meant. I've asked several people why that's in there. And it's not just a Methodist church, it's an Episcopal church. And I found out that after the first visit, see, I had my eyes on a certain girl that came to Poseyville, and we moved in from OU, and my folks hadn't started back to church yet, so I went to church here, and I found out that it's a divided congregation, that the women are on one side and the men on the other side, and we kind of broke that up because the second time I came to church, Vivian came back and sat there with me, and since the ceiling didn't fall in, and several of the other people decided to go ahead and sit with her mates too, so that we kind of broke that up.
From the church, well, making new friends and meeting old friends and bringing in new ideas.
They're all favorite memories. In fact, the memories of Poseyville are all great. It's been a wonderful life for me.
Yes, the Easter breakfast. When I was a teenager, the youth group served breakfast. We did not have any of we didn't have the fellowship hall, of course, and you entered by the outside steps, and it was in the basement. There was no room to really turn around, so when we were doing the dishes, we had a line of young people, our youth group, and one was washing dishes, one was drying, they were passing them down, and the one that was on the end put them in the cabinet because you couldn't get past each other. You had a line of helpers. It was interesting, but we made do.
The chowder, that's a Jew. That was the thing that everybody could contribute. It didn't have laws like they have today, that you have to have all the vegetables and everything could be used right out of your garden and everything. And now you got to buy the stuff and put it in there. The government is just overstepped its authority, as far as I'm concerned, because that was really a beautiful part of not only the church, but the whole community. And they all really did well by it. That's having their fellowship. It's also with the income of that chowder. They were working together.
Well, I remember first, of course, my father was highly involved, Albert Espinlab. He had a huge garden and had a three-wheeler that he attended the garden, and he had sweet corn and he had tomatoes, and he worked so hard, but he loved labor and being able to furnish all that to the church, you know, and then of course my brother came along and worked so very, very hard at building fires and cleaning kettles, and I always participated in helping dishing out the chowder, and Bill Hallman and I, and Jim Hamilton was in on that at an earlier stage, and it was good to see people and to work with your fellow Christians and take part in it, and it was very, very successful, and I wish it was still there, but times change again and things are not like they used to be. But
Well, I remember when I was little, Daddy donated all the sweet corn. At that time, that's the biggest thing I remember, was that and the tomatoes. And I can remember the women of the church coming to our house out there in the basement and cutting off all the corn and, you know, chopping tomatoes and doing all that when I was young. Of course, Mom was gone by the time I was 13 years old, so it had to be before that period of time that I remember them coming to our home in the country and doing all that for the chowder.
Well, the first chowder that I remember coming to, Mr. Harvey Davis came around, and he always said, Dempsey, you throw in what wood you got, and then drive down to the farm and we'll finish out the load. So we brought a load of wood up here, and I pitched out a hedge post to Harry Kite, and that thing just jumped off the ground 3 or 4 times. And Mr. Davis looked at me and he said, John, I think they're trying to pull a joke on Harry, which I did. But we usually start out with one kettle of soup. That's why we started. And then we just gradually increased more.
Oh, I would say at least 40 years. I've taught about every class except the men's. I can remember different classes that I did teach, and one year, June remembers, somebody else remembered me telling I was the first, second, and third grade, and we were studying, talking about prayer, talking to God, and they didn't want to do it out loud. So I told them, I said, well, we'll start this way. Said we will ask God to forgive us for something we did wrong, and we'll thank God for something He's done good for us. And you would be amazed at their answers. It just made you really humble, because there was no pretense. They confessed things they did wrong, and one little girl in particular, she said she wanted to thank God for her new baby sister, and she wanted to ask God to forgive her for hitting her other sister. Now that's a good prayer, you know. I mean, they just got right into it. They were first, second, and third grade, and I learned a lot about that, because everything was out in the open with them. And if you want to learn, a little child will lead you, you know, because they have it round pat. I remember that. And I remember I taught the ladies class, I taught high school. I remember the high school class, and the ladies class for a long time. And my last class that I taught for 11 years was the Sunshine class down. And those are the parents of the kids I did teach. So that class really was a great blessing to me. They say I was a blessing to them, but they don't have any idea what a blessing they were to me. And in that class there is love and fellowship and sharing and compassion. It's just a great class, and I'm glad I had a part in it. We have had challenges, yes, because I was financial secretary for many years, but our church is one that has always overcome those challenges. If it was financial, we just kept growing. That's why I suppose we're 200 years old.
You know, there's a lot of things that happen in the church. I know the fire, I was at Evansville and Vivian called over there, said the church is on fire, come home. What good would that have done? So it was 20 miles away. But out of that, they didn't blame anybody. It was just a thing that things were left there for us, for the kids to play with, and they lighted a candle on a church, on a cake, birthday cake, and that's what caught the curtain on fire.
It was Richard Newman and I were trustees when the church burned, and so we had a big responsibility of putting it back like it was, and you never seen such tremendous cooperation from a congregation at that time, and it was fantastic, and we did put it back like it was supposed to be. And of course the MYF was a big thing back then, and they was helped responsible what I done there, and was part of winning the contest to go to the Boy Scouts National Jamboree when I was 13 years old in Washington D.C. and Valley Forge, and being homesick, and so it was that was a big challenge. The MYF was a big thing to me.
Oh, I don't remember too many except the year I taught the junior high class. I had a great big class. I think Jamie was in it.
I could see that as challenging.
And they were not bad kids, but they had a different language. And so Barbara Cox was at high school, and she come down and she wanted to know if she could take part in my class and help teaching. I said yes, because I don't know their language. And so she became the interpreter for me. But they had so much energy and so many questions, it was challenging. You know, kids that age can ask questions that are very challenging. But I enjoyed it every bit. And it was a big class. And now all those kids are grown up with kids of their own.
Well, several years ago, we had, I guess you'd say, money problems. So getting enough money to pay the bills and pay the minister and take care of the upkeep of the church was a problem.
Well, air conditioning was certainly a big problem at one time. I do remember the day that I wore a dotted Swiss dress to church, and you don't even see that fabric anymore. The church was so hot that the varnish on the pews were sticky. And as I sat in the church pew, every time I leaned forward, the dots on my dotted Swiss would remain on the church pew. So I remember going home and telling my mom, my dress is no longer a dotted Swiss dress, it's just a Swiss.
Well, we didn't take care of any janitorial services. Cokie Sam Davis, a friend of mine, was a janitor, and he had a strong bass voice. And I was going to allude to him another time, but he was a janitor. But I did haul cobs and put them in the basement down here, underneath this outside stairway. I put in a wagon load of cobs. I was about 14, and when I hauled a load of cobs to the church, and I hauled a load to the library, and I hauled a load to Cokie Sam's house.
very friendly and a good church. Always accept people. I think they probably know that we are a friendly church. We help each other. I think one needs care, there's someone there to help you. We help each other. I know I've received that help from the younger members. I would like to let them know that the people that attend this church are loving and cooperative, and that they should enjoy them and get to know them and be able to work with them. And if you have differences of opinions, differ in love. You can discuss things, and I think they will go on to, and we need the young people. That's the future church. And I am so thrilled that we have so many young people, young families, because some of us are getting old. It is just, has always been part of my life. I've always either had an office, pianist, organist, many years as financial secretary, and I've always enjoyed it, and I've had help, and I think we are a friendly, loving, caring, and still growing church.
I was married in this church, baptized in this church. Two of my 3 children were married in this church, and they were baptized in this church. Now I have grandchildren and great-grandchildren that are coming to this church. I also love my Sunday school class. It was taught by Miss Carol at one time, and now by Dora Marie. It's still a very wonderful place to come. Also, this church is very beautiful. When you walk in and you see the stained glass windows, you don't see that in the newer churches. So I think that makes this church exceptionally beautiful.